Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the $2 bill in her trembling hands. 23 years old today. And this was all she had left in the world. She hadn't celebrated a birthday since the accident. Since that night 2 years ago, when everything shattered. Her parents, her future, her reason to wake up every morning. But today, she wanted something different. Just one thing. A birthday cake. Even the smallest one. Something to prove she was still here, still worth celebrating. The problem? $2 wouldn't even buy her hope. She stared through the bakery window at the rows of perfect cakes, each one a dream she couldn't afford. Her stomach hadn't seen a proper meal in days, but right now, hunger wasn't what hurt. It was the loneliness, the suffocating weight of being completely invisible to the world. That's when she heard it. "Daddy, why is the beautiful lady crying?" A little girl's voice. Innocent, curious, concerned. Zelda looked up to see a man and his daughter standing there, watching her. The man had kind eyes, the kind that had known pain. And what he did next? No one saw it coming. Not Zelda, not his daughter, not anyone. What this single father did in that moment would change everything. But the real shock? That was still ahead. Before we continue, let us know in the comments section where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories reach. And if this story speaks to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The man crouched down beside his daughter, his hand resting gently on her small shoulder. "I don't know, sweetheart," he said softly, his eyes meeting Zelda's for just a moment before looking away, as if he understood that sometimes grief needs privacy. But the little girl didn't look away. She stepped closer, her pink winter coat bright against the gray evening. "Are you sad because it's your birthday?" Zelda's breath caught. How could this child possibly know? She glanced down at the crumpled $2 bill in her hand, then back at the little girl's face, so open, so genuinely concerned. "How did you? You keep looking at the birthday cakes," the girl said simply. "And you're crying. That's what I do when I can't have something I really want." The man stood up, running a hand through his dark hair. He looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to walk away and spare Zelda the embarrassment of being seen like this. But something kept him there. "Alora," he said gently, "maybe we should... Can we buy her a cake, Daddy? Please?" "Sweetheart, I don't think..." "No," Zelda said quickly, wiping at her face with the back of her hand. "No, that's very kind. But I don't need..." The words tangled in her throat. She did need it. God, she needed something, anything to make today feel less like drowning. Alora turned to her father, tugging at his coat sleeve. "Daddy, it's her birthday. Nobody should be sad on their birthday." The man, Alaric, Zelda would learn later, looked at his daughter, then at Zelda, then back at his daughter. Something shifted in his expression. A resignation, maybe, or recognition. "All right," he said quietly. "All right, Alora. We can do that." "Really?" The little girl's face lit up. "No, please." Zelda started to stand, to walk away, to disappear back into the invisible life she'd been living. But Alaric held up a hand. "It's just a cake," he said. His voice was kind but firm. "Let us do this. Please." There was something in the way he said it. Not pity, not charity. Just understanding. Like he knew what it felt like to be drowning too. Zelda's throat tightened. She nodded, unable to speak. 10 minutes later, she sat on that same bench holding a small white box. Inside was a chocolate cake with "Happy Birthday" written in delicate blue frosting. It wasn't the cheapest one in the bakery. It was one of the beautiful ones she'd been staring at through the window. Alora sat beside her, swinging her legs, watching Zelda with those impossibly kind eyes. "Are you going to eat it here?" I don't know." "You should come to our house," Alora announced, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "We're having spaghetti for dinner. Daddy makes really good spaghetti. You can eat your cake after." Alaric, standing a few feet away, looked mildly alarmed. "Alora, I'm sure she has—" "I don't," Zelda heard herself say. The words came out before she could stop them. "I don't have anywhere to go." The silence that followed was heavy. Alaric's expression changed, not to pity, but to something deeper. Sadness, maybe, or recognition again. Like he was seeing her, really seeing her for the first time. "Then come with us," he said simply. Zelda's first instinct was to refuse, to protect what little pride she had left. But Alora was looking at her with such hope, such innocent certainty that this was the right thing to do. And the truth was, Zelda was so tired. Tired of being strong, tired of being alone, tired of pretending she didn't need anyone. "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." The drive to their house was quiet. Zelda sat in the back seat of Alaric's old pickup truck, the cake box balanced on her lap, watching the streets pass by through the window. Alora chattered from the front seat, telling her father about school, about her friend Emma, about the drawing she made in art class. Normal things, family things. Things Zelda hadn't heard in 2 years. Their home was small but warm. The kind of place that felt lived in, loved. Photos lined the hallway. Alora as a baby, birthday parties, a woman with kind eyes who Zelda assumed was Alora's mother. She noticed there were no recent photos of the woman. "You can put your coat there," Alaric said, gesturing to a hook by the door. He moved into the kitchen, pulling out a pot, filling it with water. "Make yourself comfortable. This won't take long." But Zelda didn't know how to make herself comfortable. She stood in the living room, hands clasped in front of her, feeling like an intruder. Alora had already disappeared down the hallway, and the sound of a door closing told Zelda she'd gone to her room. "You can sit," Alaric called from the kitchen. Zelda perched on the edge of the couch, her body tense. The house smelled like cinnamon and something else. Maybe lavender. It smelled like home. Nothing like the shelters, nothing like the cold streets, nothing like the empty, echoing silence she'd grown used to. "How long?" Alaric's voice was soft, non-judgmental. He stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, watching her carefully. "How long what?" "How long have you been on the streets?" Zelda's chest tightened. She hadn't expected him to ask so directly. 2 years, since my parents died." He nodded slowly, didn't ask for details, didn't push, just nodded, like he understood that some pain was too big for words. "I'm sorry." "Me too." Alora came back then, breaking the heavy moment. She'd changed into pajamas, pink with little stars on them, and carried a worn teddy bear under one arm. "Can Zelda see my room after dinner?" "If she wants to," Alaric said, returning to the kitchen. Dinner was strange, surreal even. Zelda sat at their small kitchen table, a plate of spaghetti in front of her, watching Alora twist noodles around her fork while talking about her day. Alaric ate quietly, occasionally smiling at his daughter's stories, occasionally glancing at Zelda as if to make sure she was okay. She wasn't okay, but she was here, and that was something. The first week felt like living in someone else's dream. Zelda slept on their couch, wrapped in blankets that smelled like fabric softener, a luxury she'd forgotten existed. Every morning, She woke to the sound of Alora's footsteps padding down the hallway, to the smell of coffee brewing, to Alaric's quiet movements as he got ready for work. She tried to make herself useful. It was the only way she knew how to justify being there. She'd wake early, fold the blankets precisely, wash any dishes left in the sink, wipe down counters that were already clean. Alaric would find her in the kitchen, rearranging things that didn't need rearranging, and he'd give her this look, gentle, slightly amused, maybe a little sad. "You don't have to do that," he said one morning, watching her organize his spice cabinet. "I want to help." Zelda didn't look at him. "You're letting me stay here. The least I can do is—" "Zelda." He waited until she turned around. "You're not a burden. You know that, right?" She didn't know that. Didn't believe it. Couldn't let herself believe it because believing it meant letting her guard down. And letting her guard down meant she could get hurt again. "I just want to contribute," she said quietly. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Okay. But you don't owe us anything. I mean that." By the second week, something shifted. Alora started treating Zelda less like a guest and more like... She wasn't sure what. A friend, maybe. Or something closer. The little girl would drag her to her room after school, showing her drawings, telling her stories, asking questions about everything. "Did you have a mom and dad?" Alora asked one afternoon, sitting cross-legged on her bedroom floor while Zelda helped her color. Zelda's hand paused over the paper. "I did. They died in a car accident." "Like my mom," Alora said softly. "She died too, from being sick." "I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry." Alora looked up at her, those impossibly wise 7-year-old eyes holding more understanding than they should. "Does it stop hurting?" Zelda's throat closed. She thought about lying, about giving some comfortable answer about time healing all wounds. But Alora deserved the truth. "No," she said, "but it gets different, less sharp. You learn to carry it." "Daddy still cries sometimes," Alora whispered, like it was a secret. "At night, when he thinks I'm sleeping." Zelda's heart cracked a little more. She looked at this small, brave girl who'd lost her mother and was still somehow full of light, full of kindness. "He loves you very much." "I know." Alora went back to coloring. "I think he's lonely, though." "Are you lonely?" "Yes," Zelda admitted. "Very. Maybe you don't have to be anymore." That evening, after Alora went to bed, Zelda found Alaric in the kitchen, washing dishes. She picked up a towel and started drying without asking. They worked in silence for a few minutes, the only sound the running water and the clink of plates. "She talks about you," Alaric said finally. "Alora, she's asked me 3 times if you're going to stay." Zelda's hands stilled. "What did you tell her?" "That it's up to you." He handed her another plate. "But for what it's worth, I hope you do. Stay, I mean, at least until you figure things out." "I can't stay here forever, Alaric. I don't know what I need to do, but I can't just..." "Why not?" He turned off the water, facing her. "Why can't you stay? What's waiting for you out there?" Nothing. The answer was nothing. But admitting that felt like admitting defeat, like admitting she'd given up on ever having a real life again. "I'm not your responsibility," she said instead. "You're right. You're not." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "But Alora likes you, and honestly, it's nice having another adult around, someone who gets it." "Gets what?" "Loss." The word hung between them. Grief. Trying to keep going when everything feels impossible. Zelda set down the towel. "You seem like you're doing fine." Alaric laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not. I run a failing auto shop, I barely sleep, and half the time, I don't know if I'm doing right by Alora. Caroline, my wife, she was the one who knew how to do all this, how to make a home, how to make things feel normal. I'm just trying not to screw it up. You're not screwing it up, Zelda said softly. Alora is amazing. You're doing something right. Maybe. He ran a hand through his hair. But it's hard doing it alone. So if you're worried about being a burden, don't be. You're helping more than you know. The third week, something changed in Zelda. She started to relax, just slightly. Started to believe, just a little, that maybe she could have this. Not forever, but for now. Maybe she could let herself feel safe. She and Alaric fell into a routine. He'd come home from the shop, covered in grease and exhaustion, and she'd have dinner started. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Alora would do homework at the kitchen table while they cooked together, and for brief moments, it felt like a family. Tell me about before, Alaric said one night, chopping vegetables while Zelda stirred sauce. Before everything fell apart. I was in college, she said, studying art. I wanted to be an illustrator, children's books maybe. Something that made people feel something, you know? Why'd you stop? Couldn't afford it. After my parents died, everything they had went to paying off debts and medical bills. I had nothing left. No family, no money, nowhere to go. She kept stirring, watching the sauce bubble. I tried to work, tried to keep going, but I couldn't afford rent and food and tuition. Something had to give. You gave up your dream. I gave up everything. Alaric was quiet for a moment. You could start again. The dream, I mean. Zelda shook her head. It's too late for that. You're 23, Zelda. It's not too late for anything. But it felt too late. It felt like she'd used up all her chances, all her hope, and this temporary kindness from a stranger and his daughter was more than she deserved. By the fourth week, Zelda realized something terrifying. She was falling in love with this life, with the quiet mornings and the chaotic evenings, with Alora's laughter and Alaric's steady presence, with feeling like she mattered again. And that scared her more than anything. One night, after Alora had gone to bed and the house was quiet, Zelda sat on the porch steps, wrapped in one of Alaric's jackets. The air was cold, biting, but she needed it. Needed to feel something sharp to cut through the warmth that was seeping into her bones. The door opened behind her. Alaric sat down beside her, 2 mugs of tea in his hands. He handed her one without a word. They sat in silence for a while, watching their breath cloud in the cold air. I can't do this, Zelda said finally, her voice cracking. Do what? This. Feel like I belong here. Feel like I'm part of something. Because eventually, it's going to end. You're going to realize I'm just some broken girl you took pity on, and I'm going to be back out there, and it's going to hurt so much worse because I let myself believe. Her voice broke completely. Alaric set his mug down. Look at me. She couldn't. Zelda, look at me. She turned, tears streaming down her face. You're not broken, he said firmly. You're hurt. There's a difference. And I didn't take you in out of pity. I did it because Alora saw someone who needed help. And because when I look at you, I see someone who's still fighting, still here. That takes strength I'm not sure I'd have. I've been alone for so long, she whispered. I don't know how to accept love anymore. I don't know how to let people in without waiting for them to leave. Then we'll figure it out together. He reached over, gently wiping a tear from her cheek. Because I'm not going anywhere, and neither is Alora. We want you here, Zelda. Not because we feel sorry for you. Because you make this place feel like a home again. Something in her chest cracked open. All the walls she'd built, all the defenses she'd carefully constructed, came crumbling down. And for the first time in 2 years, Zelda let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be loved. 3 days passed after that conversation on the porch. 3 days of Zelda feeling like she was walking on new ground, uncertain but hopeful. She caught Alaric watching her sometimes, when she helped Alora with homework, when she laughed at something silly, when she existed in his space like she belonged there. On the 4th night, after tucking Alora into bed, Alaric found Zelda in the kitchen. She was sketching on a napkin, something she hadn't done in months. Just small lines, nothing special, but it felt like breathing after holding her breath for too long. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice careful. Zelda's heart jumped. This was it. He was going to tell her it was time to move on, that she'd overstayed, that... On the porch? She followed him outside, her mind racing through every possible bad outcome. But when they sat down, when he turned to face her, there was no regret in his eyes. Only something that looked like fear mixed with determination. "I've been thinking about what you said," Alaric started. "About not knowing how to accept love. About being afraid people will leave." He took a breath. "I get it. After Caroline died, I shut down everything. Buried myself in work, in taking care of Alora, because feeling anything else was too dangerous. Loving someone means you can lose them, and I already knew how much that destroys you." Zelda's throat tightened. "Alaric, let me finish." His hands were trembling slightly. "But then you showed up. This sad, beautiful woman on a bench with $2 and a broken heart. And Alora saw you, really saw you the way kids do. And I thought, okay, we'll buy her a cake, do something kind, and that'll be it. But then she came home with us, and she stayed. And somewhere between the first week and now, I realized something terrifying." "What?" "I'm falling in love with you." The words hit her like a physical force. Zelda couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "You don't mean that." "I do." He moved closer, his eyes locked on hers. "I've tried to fight it. Tried to tell myself it's too soon, too complicated, too risky. But I can't anymore, Zelda. I care about you, deeply. You're not a charity case to me. You're not someone I pity. You're someone who makes me laugh again, who makes this house feel alive, who loves my daughter like she's precious. You're someone I want in my life. Not temporarily. Not until you figure things out. I want you here. With us. With me." Tears spilled down Zelda's cheeks. "I'm terrified. So am I." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle. "But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe and alone. I've done alone. It's worse than being scared. What if I'm not ready? What if I mess this up? What if... Then we'll mess it up together." He smiled softly. "I'm not asking you to be perfect, Zelda. I'm asking you to stay, to try, to let yourself be loved, even though it's scary as hell." She looked at him. This man who'd shown her more kindness than anyone in 2 years, who'd given her shelter and food and something far more valuable, hope. She thought about Alora, about the little girl who'd seen her crying and decided she mattered, about the life they were offering her, fragile and uncertain, but real. "I don't know if I'm ready," she whispered. "That's okay." Alaric squeezed her hand. "We'll take it slow. We'll figure it out. But please, don't run because you're scared. Stay because you want to. Because you feel something too. And God, she did feel something. She felt everything, terror and hope and love and fear all tangled together. But underneath it all was something stronger, the belief that maybe she deserved this. Maybe she deserved to be happy again. I feel something, she admitted. I feel everything. And it scares me so much, Alaric. Because losing you, losing both of you, would break me in ways I don't think I'd survive. Then we won't lose each other. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles softly. We'll hold on. We'll fight for this. Because you're worth fighting for, Zelda. You always have been. She leaned into him then, letting him wrap his arms around her, letting herself cry against his chest while he held her like she was something precious. And for the first time since her parents died, Zelda let herself believe she was home. 6 weeks later, Alaric took Zelda and Alora back to the bakery, the same one where it all started. Alora kept giggling, bouncing on her toes, clearly in on whatever secret her father was planning. Why are we here? Zelda asked, laughing as Alora tugged her toward the door. You'll see, Alaric said, that soft smile playing at his lips. Inside, the bakery was warm and smelled like sugar and possibility. The owner recognized them, waving from behind the counter. And there, on a small table near the window, the same window Zelda had pressed her face against months ago, sat a beautiful cake. White frosting with delicate blue flowers. Simple. Perfect. Alaric, what? He took her hand, and suddenly he was on one knee, and Zelda's heart stopped. Zelda, the first time I saw you, I saw someone who was hurting. But I also saw someone who hadn't given up. Someone who was still here, still trying, still hoping for something better. Over these past months, I've watched you heal. I've watched you smile again. I've watched you love my daughter like she's your own. And I've fallen completely, impossibly in love with you. Tears were already streaming down her face. You make me want to be brave again, he continued. You make me believe in second chances. And I know we've only known each other a few months. And I know this might seem fast. But when you've lived through loss, you learn that life's too short to waste time being afraid. He pulled out a simple silver ring. Marry me. Be my wife. Be Alora's mom. Be part of this family that already feels incomplete without you. Zelda couldn't speak, could barely see through her tears. But she nodded, frantically, desperately. Yes, yes, oh my God, yes. Alaric stood, sliding the ring onto her finger, and kissed her while Alora cheered and the bakery owner clapped, and the world felt right in a way it hadn't in years. I love you, Zelda whispered against his lips. I love you too. A year later, Zelda stood in the small art studio attached to their house, the one Alaric had built for her, the one where she taught art classes to kids from low-income families every Saturday. The walls were covered in drawings and paintings, bright splashes of color and hope. Alora sat at one of the easels, carefully painting a sunset, her tongue poking out in concentration. Through the window, Zelda could see Alaric in the yard, fixing something on his truck, grease on his hands, and a smile on his face. This was her life now. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but full. She'd gone from having nothing, from sitting on a frozen bench with $2 and a broken heart, to having everything that mattered. She thought about that girl sometimes, the one who couldn't afford a birthday cake, the one who thought she'd never be happy again. And she wished she could go back and tell her, hold on. Just hold on a little longer. Because sometimes, when you least expect it, a little girl and her father walk into your life and change everything. Sometimes love finds you when you're not looking, when you're broken and lost and convinced you don't deserve it. Sometimes it comes in the form of a kind gesture, a warm home, and two people who see you, really see you, and decide you're worth keeping. Alaric came inside, wrapping his arms around her from behind. You okay? Zelda leaned into him, watching Alora paint, feeling the weight of the ring on her finger, breathing in the life she'd built from nothing. I'm more than okay, she said softly. I'm home. And she was. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even in the darkest moments, hope can find you, please subscribe to Soul Story. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling us what spoke to you. Because stories like these, they matter. And your support helps us keep telling them. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you're never as alone as you think you are.